In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, taking a look at a lot of activity in the tropics. We do have our chance of development there somewhere in what we call the main development region, at least the western part of it, just to the north of South America. We'll be talking about that, and I wouldn't rule it out as a potential threat for the United States, but the thing is that it is a relatively low chance of development, and then it is so far to the east that there is a lot of different paths it could take. So we're going to keep an open mind and pay attention to it, but there is a lot of variables at play with that one. My more concerning threat for the United States is that system that's doing the full loop that we talked about earlier this week, or I guess late last week, I should say. And that one is going to move into the northern Gulf, and we'll be watching that one very, very, very closely. But right now, there is no threat as of what the National Hurricane Center shows, but I do believe we will be seeing a threat pop up from them, at least a percent chance that this one could develop. We do have a couple of Eastern Atlantic or Pacific systems to talk about, and that's interesting. But again, as far as threats to the United States, not super concerned, but definitely paying attention. Let's go ahead and zoom in on some of these areas and just take a look. So here's our area to the north of South America. We can see it is east of Puerto Rico, obviously west of Africa, and then to the north there of Venezuela, basically. As we zoom in, we're going to watch the model guidance play out. We do have a 10% chance of development over the next 2 days and 7 days. This is the same as it was yesterday. Earlier today, it did hop up to a 20% chance of development, but it is back down to a 10% chance. So this one is all over the place, but again, a really low shot of development. And we do see that precipitation kind of move through the area and away. The thing I will say here that's interesting is we do see an overall southward movement over time. So I'll draw an arrow here just to make it more clear, but we do see this kind of meander its way down towards South America. And typically we call this a hurricane graveyard, or in this case, a tropical disturbance graveyard, because it really is an area that is highly unfavorable for tropical development, typically, if it interacts with South America down there. So that movement also leads me to believe that this one has a lower chance of developing. We do see more areas of disturbance. This is by the 25th, so 4 days from now. We do have another area of storminess move through, and that does move towards the Caribbean, not really doing much. And then we actually get a third here for the 28th, 7 days from now. So I guess next Monday that moves through, and then that one actually kind of beelines it towards maybe north of Dominican Republic and Haiti. We see it here, so let's see what it does from that point. It kind of just dissipates. So we're watching multiple areas move through there. That'll be interesting to monitor. I do want to discuss this kind of motion that we're going to be seeing. Again, I think that we are going to have a chance of development for this area over the coming days. So let's watch this kind of loop take place as our storminess moves into there. So we could see as of even just tomorrow morning, we see a lot of storminess off the east coast of Florida. And that subsequently, for tomorrow afternoon and evening, creates a lot of storminess across Florida, even for Georgia and South Carolina there, before moving over the Gulf. And this one actually is more in the central Gulf as opposed to our model guidance yesterday. We do see that this is more over open water, which would likely increase the threat of potential development. So we'll be watching that closely. This then actually looks pretty organized by the time we're looking at 5 p.m. on the 24th, 3 days from now. So let me do the math here. Sorry, I've been doing a lot today. So that'll be Thursday at 5 p.m. here. We see some storminess in Louisiana, but really the low is probably there somewhere around this more organized cluster. As we continue on towards what'll be Friday, we see it basically dissipates from that point. Here's Friday, 2 p.m., 5 p.m. there, somewhere in southern Texas. But really, if it reaches this point and develops, you can't really rule out a movement towards really anywhere. So we could be looking at Louisiana, could be looking at more of like North Texas coast, like areas surrounding Houston, South Texas there, or even the more rare kind of like drop to the south towards Mexico there. So there's a lot of variables at play, especially if this storm develops. Typically, the weaker the system is, the more that it's going to kind of obey the steering pattern, which is essentially your jet streams and where winds, the upper level winds, are moving. But if it's a stronger system, it's going to be able to move against those a lot easier and could do a lot more. So we're going to really have to watch this one closely. Again, tons of variables at play, but I'm excited to watch things play out with you guys and get to the bottom of this one. I feel like a weather detective sometimes. As we look at the Eastern Pacific, we do see a lot of activity along kind of your equatorial Pacific area here. A lot of westward movement. And a lot of times we'll see these systems kind of spin off of there to the north, and that's when you'll get tropical development. And we're going to see a couple of these here throughout this model run. As we just kind of keep going, we see one right here. It starts to develop there near kind of like offshore of Guatemala, I would say. Somewhere in here, and it wants to move northward. So again, it's leaving this kind of typical flow that we see towards the north, and then it really starts to develop. We'll zoom in here. This is 2 p.m. on the 28th, so again next Monday, and we see this one really get its act together here. Could be a intense system if it plays out this way. Looks like definitely a well-developed storm there, and then we actually afterwards get another one here, as you can see on the middle of your screen, that wants to get going as well. So at this point, we have our strong system still going towards the west there, and then another one that's intensifying here just behind it. So we have two developed tropical systems in the Eastern Pacific, according to this GFS model, towards the end of July into early August. This is in the medium to long range mostly. A lot of this not happening until 7 days from now or so. So take it with a grain of salt, but this should tell you that the Eastern Pacific is also about to wake up in a big way, much like, well, probably exceeding what we're expecting in the Atlantic overall. So super interesting stuff there that we will continue to monitor with you guys as well. Let's head over to Weather Bell and take a look at the European model. And as we take a look at things, we're going to be watching for this kind of homegrown system. Again, we'll be watching for this loop. I feel like I'm a broken record. I feel like I'm on a loop, an audio loop, saying the same thing every day, but it really is a loop. I mean, the system will kind of just track what it's done. It started here, moved through Louisiana, and then it's moving back, and that's where it's at right now. But what we're going to see it do is essentially this. And then it's finally going to break that loop if it doesn't move northward into Louisiana and starts to move further westward. Super interesting for a storm to take a track like this. So we're watching some pretty incredible stuff here. Might have a chance at some development as it moves southward down the southeast coastline. That would be highly interesting and a very unusual storm track if that did occur. But I think certainly this will present a risk of tropical development across the northern 2/3 of the Gulf. We'll be watching for that over the coming days. I really think that we are going to see some outlooks from the National Hurricane Center soon for this one, so we'll be watching that. Let's go ahead and see this play out. Here's by tomorrow afternoon on Tuesday. Again, a lot of this is now off the southeast, over Florida, even some of it already over the Gulf. And then it really moves off of Florida into the Gulf by the time we're looking at Wednesday afternoon. This is 2 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday the 23rd. This model, look at how much further it is to the north here. The center of low pressure is somewhere right here, very close to Louisiana. The GFS model was all the way down here. So that's what I mean when I say there's huge variables. The GFS model, way down to the south like this, is going to present a higher risk of development just because it's way less land interaction. Definitely more time over open water. That would be the worst of the two. This hugging the coast type scenario would bring a lot of rainfall, a lot of thunderstorms to the coast there of the Gulf, but it would lower the chance of development. It wouldn't eliminate the risk, but it would lower the chance, in my opinion there, and really history would show us that. And this one strikes, if you will. It might just be a tropical disturbance by this point, so that might be a little excessive, but It will move onshore near Houston on this particular solution. So really, the European model stays further north the whole way through the progression. The GFS model stays further south the whole way through the progression. So the GFS model, it's a classic thing for it to be further south than most models. It does have a southeast bias. Typically, we use that term during the winter time when this GFS model shows snowfall further south than the other models, but maybe it applies to the hurricane season here. Interesting to see that the European model that we're looking at now is much further to the north than the GFS model with a known southern bias. So just food for thought there. By this weekend, we do see a lot of storminess prevailing across the northern states, some of the northern Rockies, some of the northern plains, but really the Midwest, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast is where we really get going there with the consistent precipitation. By Saturday, we see a lot of that Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, Southeast seeing a lot of storms. Sunday here on the 27th, a lot of the East overall. Monday on the 28th, Southeast, also Upper Midwest seeing some of this. And then for Tuesday on the 29th, again, East is getting active once more. We do see a storm system for Wednesday the 30th along the plains. This is nearly 10 days out, so take it with a grain of salt, but this could pose a threat for heavy rainfall, maybe even severe weather, but certainly thunderstorms would be abundant in this type of pattern. Also worth noting, we have a large ridge in the west, trough in the east pattern, so perhaps a positive PNA look here with, again, the cooler air. I say cooler because it's still probably warm to maybe hot, but much cooler than what is typical for late July here happening in the east. Also probably enhancing and causing more instability across a lot of these areas, bringing more thunderstorms overall. Thursday the 31st, same theme. Friday the 1st of August here, looking similar. East is very active. Even Saturday the 2nd, maybe one of the more active days here. For Sunday the 3rd, the southeast, and it is moving out. We do get another system across the plains here as we move later into August, approaching kind of like the first week of August being over here. So we're looking at the 5th here of August. We do see storms throughout the plains once again, but take it with a serious grain of salt because this is extremely far out. Let's take a look at the total precipitation. Overall, this area is very active here throughout the model run. Also this area, but the biggest difference is going to be these areas average much less precipitation, and they're seeing a equal amount to these deeper south areas. So these areas will be above average, climate average, and these areas will actually be average to maybe even below average for certain spots, just because your average precipitation is so much higher. When you get equal amounts, you have to pay attention to what the averages are for each individual location. And again, some areas are above average here where we get immediate tropical downpours, but a lot of these areas had a lot of precipitation and they're below average. These areas are widespread above average here across the northern plains and upper Midwest. Definitely a lot of precipitation on the way. With all that being said, be sure to subscribe. We upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.